so we got some stuff to do tonight.
That's cool. That's totally
But
cool.
um, yeah, dude, finally getting ready to get back to normal a little bit tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes.
How
Hey,
long?
there's our first viewer. There's 3 viewers. There's 5 viewers.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
8 viewers. All right. So yeah, what were you asking? How long we've been here, or what how
How
long?
long's the drive back?
Oh, it's actually only like 6 hours, but it takes about 8 with the little dude.
Yeah.
Just stopping and getting him out a little bit, letting him walk around, kind of breaking it up a little bit so he's not just stuck in a car seat for that long. But yeah, it's only about a 6 hour trip. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But the Wi-Fi is gonna. I hope the Wi-Fi doesn't act up here. It randomly knocked out earlier today too, so all sorts of issues going on here at the in-laws
Left
house,
and
man.
right.
But we'll make it happen. We will make it happen. All right, here we go. Chris, have you ever been punched in the face, or have you ever punched someone in the face? Two-parter here.
I don't believe it's a yes to either. Not
Wow.
at least not in my. I'm trying to think back. Like maybe like in middle school or something like that. There may have been a scuffle here and there, but no, I've never been in any sort of altercation like that. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would like to punch me in the face, and trust me, there's a lot of faces I want to punch. It just
Well,
hasn't gotten to that.
I was going to get into that. I've got that list is probably growing for me, because I just hate Michigan so much, and I just
Yeah.
want them to do so badly.
Yeah.
So the only time I got punched in the face, it wasn't like a. I was on the bus, so this tells you the age level here. I'm
Okay.
maybe in like 5th grade, and there was a kid that was a couple grades below me, and he was just like this little bratty little kid. And I said something to him, and he kind of bopped me in the nose, dude. I'll never forget it. But he was like little. He was like 3 years younger than me, so I couldn't really like do anything back, even though I was like a small kid, and it wouldn't have been like the worst thing in the world if I had tuned him up real quick. But when you're like a 5th or 6th grader, you can't go beating up a 2nd or 3rd grader. Like you just can't
No,
do it.
that'll destroy your street cred
Yeah, you can't
for
do
sure.
that. So he popped me in the nose on the bus, and I remember, eyes watering a little bit, but that was about it. He was little and small, and like it wasn't anything. But that's the only time I can think of. And then I punched a kid in the jaw, like when he wouldn't give me my football back in probably like 2nd or 3rd grade. I remember again, I was super super short, and he was doing the whole like holding the ball up above his head move, and I was
Yeah.
like, whop, just a little quick chin tap.
Yeah.
Dropped my ball, picked it up, I ran. That's about. I've never been in like a full on.
We're not fighters.
I'm not
you
not
know?
an angry dude, man. I mean, like, and I do think a big part of that is I wasn't fighting anybody when I was younger. I was so freaking small, dude. And I know like
Yeah.
some people are like, it's not the size of the dog, it's the size of the
Well,
dog in the fight. Well, it is. It is the size of the dog in the fight. I'm not about to go fight no big old dude when I was
Yeah.
weighing about 60 pounds in 6th grade.
Yeah.
So I've just never been that kind of guy. I'll tear someone up with words, make you feel like an idiot. That's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
But no, man, never really been a fighter. Never been a
Nice.
fighter. And here's the deal: for people who don't know Chris or haven't, I mean, like Chris is a pretty big dude. He's got the bald head. He's got the beard. He's tatted, sleeves.
It's all a facade.
You think you'd be fighting every weekend, dude? I thought.
I feel like you know what we're getting pretty close to that point here. It's I'm adding to the list on a daily basis. So
Well, you were about to make a trip to a neighbor's house the last time we talked off the
I actually
off the
did.
phone.
I actually did make the trip to the
Oh,
neighbor's
boy.
house. We'll talk about that offline. For people who are wondering, we live in a subdivision, and we have people. The speed limit is 15 miles an hour. I've got 2 kids that are through here, and we just have people in the subdivision. I'm sure
Terracing.
homeowners out there can relate to that. If you live in a sub, they're just flying through here, and so. There's one neighbor that I guess has been doing it repeatedly, and had to go pay him a visit and just kind of calmly explain how much it would mean to me if he would slow down a little bit. So
Get them. Get those two. I got a backup mic right here. Get them ready. Get them tuned up for them. No, that's pretty funny. Yeah, no, never been. And I think at this point, like if you make it through like high school and college without getting in a little scrap,
yeah,
I'm probably good. Like I
Your
don't.
scrapping days are over.
Yeah, I don't foresee it happening. I guess if something really
Yeah.
popped off with my wife or my kid, that would be about it. But there's no more testosterone flying around. I'm not in the bars drunk. I'm not trying to pick up chicks. Like those days are gone, man. That's how they all start, right? Back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yep.
So that those days are behind me, I think. But anyway, pretty funny question there. Last minute threw it up there. Chris had like a slightly different approach. It was like what was it?
It was something I saw on Instagram. It was basically, would you, if somebody offered you $10 million, would you take it if it meant that once a year you would get punched in the face by like an MMA fighter at random, so you wouldn't know
Like
it
you
was
didn't know.
coming. Right.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, I'll take the $10 million, but now every year for the rest of my life, at some point, this dude's going to show up and try to punch me in the face. So was it worth it? I don't know that I would. I wouldn't go for. I don't know.
What
I've never
happens
been
if
faced
that-
with $10 million, though. If $10 million was sitting on the table, I think I'd have to take it.
What happens if something happens to that guy and he dies? You're in the clear.
Hey, man, that's the way the cards fall,
Okay.
So
Okay.
whether or not you're involved
in
in that
Yeah,
is
well.
another story,
Yeah, I'm not about to kill anybody. Yeah, I think yeah, I said that I would probably do it because if that's what led to this question. I said I'd probably do it because like you might get punched in the face anyway, and
Yeah.
and you don't have $10 million, but like
Yeah.
to know that it's coming.
Live in
What
a
if he-
constant state of
What if
fear.
what if he did it on like December 31st and January 1st, like back to back days, just clocked. Like, so let me expand on this a little bit. Is this like a sucker punch, or like is he coming up and squaring up with you?
No, you don't know it's coming.
Oh,
It's
that would be
randoms.
pretty
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would-
So I
you
mean, hell, you could be asleep in bed.
Ooh,
Yeah.
how did Conor McGregor get into my bedroom, bro? Like, what
Doesn't
the hell
matter.
is he doing in there?
Doesn't matter. It's time to pay up.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. Talk about some Michigan stuff, actually. So today was funny, man. Today took me back to my days of being an everyday recruiting person, which I am not anymore. It really actually showed me like how plugged in you do need to be good at covering recruiting, because I'm still covering it. Michigan offers a kid. I follow the kid. I kind of see what they're up to, read their backstory, might reach out here or there, obviously following a little closer with some of the big targets, and Michigan had a big weekend this past weekend, so we kind of jumped into that a little bit. But to say that I'm covering it every day, the in and outs like I used to, I'm just not. I mean, we're doing, the vibe is a little different on the website. My role is different than it was then. So anyway, I put up a story today about how Connor Harrell, who I thought was Michigan's number one target at quarterback after Nate Johnson committed to Utah, that he visited Michigan on Monday. He threw for the coaches. He got to know Matt Weiss really well. Things are going awesome. He announces on Twitter that he's going to make a choice on the 4th of July. I'm thinking, like, Michigan's in a good spot. I don't know if they're going to get him, but he's their number one target. He knows that. He just took a visit. He's only taken 2 other officials. I think I like Michigan's chances here. He didn't tell me one way or the other. Yes, it's Michigan. No, it's not. I'm going to look somewhere else. It was all kind of vague. So I put a story up real quick this morning about how Michigan's top target at quarterback is closing in on a decision, and then they land a quarterback today, and it's not Connor Harrell. It's like out of left field.
Yeah.
Jaden Denegal, who I really hadn't heard a whole lot about. I mean, I had already followed him on Twitter, so I knew a little bit about when he was getting mail from Michigan, but I never talked to him, never learned much about him. He shows up in Ann Arbor today. He works out for the coaches. He throws for them. He gets offered. He essentially commits on the spot. So there you go. As a person who never covered recruiting before, what do you think about my awesome reporting today of putting up this news about Connor Harrell, and then it ends up being a completely different guy, but Michigan now has their quarterback in 2022?
Well, I think it's interesting because I come at recruiting from the standpoint more of a fan, and we've had this conversation before that generally speaking, I don't think the fan base really cares all that much about recruiting. Now there's a small segment
It's
of
a
the fan
niche
base,
thing for sure.
Right, that are going to hang on every single word, but I think for the most part, man, people, what happened today and what's kind of played out at at the quarterback position for 2022 is why people don't choose to plug into it, because there's so many variables, there's so many moving pieces. You're dealing with unpredictable kids that, quite frankly, are making one of the biggest decisions of their lives, and you never know which way it's going to go. And then something like today happens where it sort of catches you by surprise. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how I view it. That's kind of the way recruiting goes, and I just don't know that being as plugged in is as advantageous as maybe as it once was, just given how quickly things can change. Did have the opportunity. I looked at his film, right? So I did a little bit of research as soon as I heard his name because I didn't know much about him, anything about him prior to his commitment, and he looks all right. He looks like a solid quarterback. He's not one of those dual threat guys. He's not going to burn you out of the pocket. He's a pocket passer, but he's a big dude, 6'4", I think 210, 215. Obviously, he's got room to grow. And we'll see. A lot of people are looking at this like they think, why is Michigan even going after a quarterback in 2022 given who they currently have? But, Michigan has zero known commodities right now at the quarterback position. And so until you figure out a lot more about that group in that room, you got to continue to recruit at the position for sure.
You can't skip a cycle. We've seen it before. It's happened, I believe, with Brady Hoke. I think he skipped a year and didn't take a quarterback, and then you're kind of stuck with, one guy gets hurt and or somebody transfers out, and then you're like, oh my God, we don't have it, there's nobody at the position to rely on, and you don't want to be in that spot. And again, with the way transfer quarterbacks jump ship all the time, Michigan could be rolling in with a guy that's on a different team right now. I mean, that's just kind of how it works. But I agree with you. You don't want to skip a cycle. You want to get a guy in every class, at least one. And yeah, I mean, to say that I'm over the moon about this, it would be a lie. I mean, he there's nothing wrong with Jaden Denegal on film. He's a big kid, like you said, 6'4", 210, 215, 220. I even saw him up to 227 or something.
Wow, okay.
Depending on where you get your info from on that. But big arm, good athlete, not a great athlete. He's not the runner that Connor Harrell is, and certainly not the runner that Nate Johnson is. But I really liked when I watched this tape. The thing that stuck out to me is just he just looks really calm. Now again, these are highlights. It's every play is a good play, but he just looks so calm and comfortable and cool in the pocket, just kind of moving around, nice and deliberate, easy throws, big strong arm, big kid. I don't hate the pickup, but again, I mean, this is this is pretty late in the cycle to be offering a quarterback and then taking his commitment the same day. I mean, that's great that it worked out that way. Hopefully the coaches really, really liked what they saw. Obviously, Jaden liked what he saw during his visit, and they came together, and now Michigan has its guy. But I mean, when you flip it back all the way to a year ago when quarterback recruiting really picks up, usually it's about 2 years out from their graduation. That's when those relationships are developed. They come and work out for the coaches. They really get to know them. They start becoming the face of a class in many cases. I mean, that's how it went with J.J. McCarthy. He was committed to Michigan for almost 2 years. He was putting in the work to try to get skill guys that he wanted to play with, became the face of that class, and kind of becomes a leader before he even steps foot on campus. That's the more traditional way to do it. Didn't go that way with this cycle. And it might go that way again in 2023 because I think Michigan's in a good spot with Dante Moore. So, we talked about this before when Nate Johnson picked Utah. We don't know anything about how J.J. McCarthy is going to be in college. Some people think he's amazing. Some people think he's really good. I think he's somewhere in the middle of that. I think he's got the potential to be really good. Dante Moore hasn't even started his junior year of high school yet, and he's uncommitted. So I just don't know how much of those two things really go into the decision of these kids making their choice. Maybe it did affect Nate Johnson. Maybe it didn't. Obviously, it didn't affect Jaden Denegal because he was on campus for 1 day, picked up his offer, and committed. So again, I don't think this is a change the program type of get, but I don't have a lot of negative things to say about him. It's just like when you look at his offer list and how the recruiting process has gone for him, even with the school that he's now committed to, he wasn't option number one. There's no way you can no way you can spin that. He was not their first option, but he's the guy that they have now, and we'll see how that how he looks as a senior, and what his prep career ends up looking like. I don't know. I just, as you said, as a I don't want to say lukewarm, but as a fan of Michigan and someone who doesn't cover recruiting that closely, I mean, does it move the needle for you even at all?
No,
I mean, you can shoot it straight here.
Yeah, no, I would say it's a meh. You sort of shrug your shoulders, and it's kind of like wait and see. We'll see when he gets on campus. We'll see how he does. Obviously working through the system. For fans. To this point, there has been nothing to give anybody confidence that if a quarterback comes to Michigan who needs to develop in certain areas, that they're going to be able to develop in those areas. So, I've got a very specific type of quarterback that I like. Like I want somebody who's dynamic. I want a playmaker. I want a guy who can, can sling the ball, but can also get to the perimeter and burn guys with his legs. I just want, when I look at quarterbacks and I look at, playmakers, I want the guys that can sort of do it all and run around with their hair on fire and just make things happen. Almost borderline reckless, but not quite to that point. And you're right. He looks like a guy who plays it safe, smart kid, big arm, can do some things, but it's not, this isn't the type of recruit that is going to get anybody excited until he actually does something on the field. And, these guys, sometimes they do that, sometimes they become that. So I'm not willing to, crap on it too much here early. It's just, I'm going to take the stance of most fans and, prove it on the field. That's where I'm at with this guy.
His other biggest offers, Auburn, Colorado, Michigan State, Georgia, that's it. I mean, they're, just into double-digit offers, no real powerhouses in there. I know the Georgia offer is there. I wonder, what if that was committable or when that came through from the Bulldogs, because obviously they're one of the better teams in the country. But, word is that he was pretty high on UCLA, threw for them. They didn't offer. I mean, so that's like I'm going to throw this comment up, and I don't agree with it completely, but you're never going to win the Big Ten with that kid, and Michigan will be lucky to win 9 games this year. I won't say that, but I will say based on his recruiting profile, the interest that he's getting, and how it all came together, it's probably more likely that it plays out that way. I mean that then. Rather than him coming in and being all Big Ten or all American worthy. I mean, it just doesn't look like that right now. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. I mean, hopefully he exceeds expectations and has a phenomenal development track and does amazing at Michigan. But right now, that's not what I would put my money on. So happy for the kid. Glad Michigan does have a quarterback in 2022 right now, because I was really beginning to wonder, like, what the hell? What are they going to do now? Like, Nate Johnson's off to Utah. It looks like Connor Harrell's going to pick North Carolina in a little over a week. Justin Martin, who they've also offered and we're in on, is currently committed to Cal. I mean, like, I was really wondering what was going to happen, and now we know. Jaden Denegal committed earlier today after visiting Michigan and throwing for the coaches, picking up the offer. There you have it. I'm going to let you take the wheel on this one, because you put up a little article about it, probably did a little bit more research and back study on it than I did. But Hunter Dickinson, Devontae Jones, looking for I think I don't even know if hopefully I don't even screw this part up, but they were looking for an invite to the NBA draft combine, and neither of them got it, right? I know Hunter Dickinson did not.
I'm not sure about Devontae Jones. I know that Jones has been, by all accounts, balling out and really doing some good things, when he participated in the G League event. I know for a fact Dickinson didn't get it, and that was what I put up in the piece today. And, the guy, he clearly... all of these guys want to go play in the NBA. Like, that's the dream, right? You come to a big program like Michigan, and then the next step is to go to the NBA. Dickinson's certainly one of those guys who has interest in the next level, but I think he got what he wanted, or is getting what he wanted out of this process so far. From everything I've heard, it doesn't sound like he's raised his draft stock at all. He's kind of right where he was going into it. Tremendous upside, but I think the general consensus is he could use another year in Ann Arbor to fine-tune some things. It's I think Dickinson knew that would probably be the case coming in. He had said that, he had done specific things to ensure that he could come back to the University of Michigan if that's what it would take, and it looks like that's where it's headed, and he's coming back to a pretty damn good situation if you think about it. I mean, the roster is loaded, Juwan Howard's still there, and they're going to be a serious title contender, so I think all signs are pointing to having Hunter Dickinson back in Ann Arbor next year.
I think
this
both.
year.
Right? Yeah, I think both. I mean, Dickinson, it's almost a guarantee at this point without, confirming that he didn't get the invite, and then Jones, I mean, it's not like I don't want to say it too harshly, but he's not an NBA guy for sure. Like any guy who's kind of in that camp, if they have a chance to come back to school, like they probably will, or they should, I think, in most cases. But we've talked about this before. All it takes is for one team to fall in love with a guy's game, one general manager, one front office to say, we see something in that kid and we want him and we're going to let him know and we want him to stay in the draft. I mean, like, that's all it takes. We've seen it in the past with a couple of Michigan guys that a lot of people thought left a little too early. DJ Wilson comes to mind most obviously, but and then he ended up being, like a top 20 or top 25 pick in the first round. So it happens, but it does sound like Dickinson will be back after not getting the invite, and I think Jones will be too. And I think both of those guys start for Michigan next year. I mean, that's kind of the look that it has. Certainly Dickinson, but Jones, to come in and kind of replace Mike Smith and maybe do something very similar. Come in as a transfer, adapt his game to what Michigan needs, and get after it. He's a scorer. He can do a lot of things. We saw Mike Smith do the same thing. Came in as a scorer, turned more into a facilitator. And I know he was getting a little bit of a look at the NBA, the Combine, G League, whatever they called that league where they were practicing and playing against each other. In fact, I saw a clip where Devontae Jones took Mike Smith to the rack a couple of times and got a couple buckets over him. So, Mike Smith was a lot of great things for Michigan. Defender was never really what he hung his hat on. He wasn't a bad defender, but Devontae Jones is a scorer, and he showed that multiple times in that G League exhibition games and a couple of times against Mike Smith I saw. So anyway, there you go.
And I think what it shows is that, Michigan fans are excited about this upcoming season, and rightfully so, right? Like I said, the roster is stacked. They had that top class that's coming in. And I think that if nothing else, to see these two guys out participating in that G League camp and see what their potential is, what they're capable of, what some of their upside is, what some of the downside is, man, it's really nice. If we didn't have either Jones or Dickinson coming this year, we would still have a pretty nice team and one that could presumably make a deep run in the tournament. I think with these two guys coming back, man, it's just, I feel like I'm excited for the football season, no doubt, but I am certainly more excited for this basketball season than I probably have been for any season in my life.
Yeah, I mean, everything's just heading in the right direction. I mean, you can't point to one area of the basketball program right now and say like, I wish that was like a little bit better. Like you really can't do that, and that's incredible. That's incredible for Juwan Howard to have the program there already. I mean, certainly he inherited a pretty damn good program. I mean, things were humming already, but like we've said before, I think he's taken it to another level, especially on the recruiting trail. The culture that was already really good after John Beilein is even healthier now, I think, under Juwan Howard. And I mean, Michigan basketball fans, Michigan fans in general are, beyond excited. I mean, I don't know how many times you've seen now, like, can we just get to basketball season already? Like, people are really saying that. It's crazy. That'll fade as August rolls around, and then when the fall, the leaves start changing a little bit, people will be like, all right, let's do this football thing. Even if the team's not doing real well, it's still Michigan football.
Yeah.
It's still college football. It's still Michigan football. But that basketball program has a lot of people in Ann Arbor excited, especially if those two guys come back, Hunter Dickinson and Devontae Jones, which it looks like they will. All right, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one again, too. You put up a story about this, the details of which just another not good look for Michigan and for the people involved in this whole thing. U of M made an offer, kind of a settlement type of case thing. Some numbers were thrown out there to the survivors of Dr. Anderson, and what happened?
Well, so I had read in an article by John Bacon. Do you say the U in John U. Bacon's name, or do you just say John Bacon? I'm going to go with John Bacon because I feel like John U. Bacon just sounds weird to say.
Yeah, I don't think I would say it out loud, even though that's like his official name on his Twitter and like his author, when he authors books, whatever.
So John put together an article. And, he had said that his sources had mentioned that, Michigan was offering, a payout or a settlement to the tune of, $90 million, which essentially equated to $100 million per survivor, I guess.
$100,000.
Or $100,000,
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's come forward. And that it was rejected by the representation of these players. And I reached out to one earlier this afternoon just to sort of say, hey, is this something that happened? Did you hear from Michigan? Was able to confirm that did happen. And basically what I was told is, it feels like a slap in the face. Mm-hmm. Particularly given how, what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess just how uninterested Michigan has seemed to be in terms of like how they're going to resolve it, or how they address the people that have gone through this. And so I think if Michigan was hoping that this offer was going to make this thing go away, mm-hmm. I can tell you based on the conversation I had today, we're not anywhere near having this go away, and in fact the offer was a bit of an insult.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers of the people involved are so much higher than some of the other cases we've seen at Penn State. Yeah, Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State. I mean, there's more and more schools that you can rattle off, but some of the ones obviously closer to home and more recent, Penn State, Michigan State. The numbers of victims affected are way higher with Michigan, and that payout is way lower. It's like you said, it's a slap in the face. If those were the people who were, the people involved, when you just look at how it's played out in other instances, it's like they don't care. They really don't care. They just want this. They're not saying anything about it. They're letting prominent people in the university run around and say whatever they want about us, and then they bring us this offer that pales in comparison to some of the other settlements in some of these other cases. Now, people are probably going to say that this makes it look more like a money grab. Well, they were offered money and they didn't take it. They want more. Well, they should get more because it's more people. It was horrible. It went on for 40 years. And Michigan has essentially done nothing about it since this all started happening. The Wilmer Hale report is one thing, I guess, but from what we've heard, even that, as extensive as it seemed on the surface, the 240 pages and all the stuff that was in there, the people who either were a part of it as anonymous people or weren't even a part of it in the first place, they didn't really dig that thing. They didn't really dig the Wilmer Hale report, and they didn't think it did. They thought it was a huge disservice to what actually went on and what they want to see happen. So it's just not a good look that it was. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this yet, but publicly now it looks like Michigan has tried to cover it up, tried to get past it, tried to move on as quickly as possible without really doing anything, and they got shot down. That's a bad look.
And let's be clear that yes, there was an offer that was made, monetary, but that's not all these guys are looking for. And in particular, John Vaughn, when he was at that press conference near Michigan Stadium, was very clear what he wanted to see. And that was, the University of Michigan, the NCAA, the Big Ten, all coming together, starting a nonprofit group, or giving the seed money for a nonprofit group that could look into things like this. So this is bigger than just a settlement, a financial payout. These guys want to see that not only does the University of Michigan get it, but that the NCAA gets it. And we've seen enough of these stories pop out now over the course of time to know that there is a serious issue that goes on at the collegiate level, one that clearly the NCAA isn't equipped to handle, the universities aren't equipped to handle. And so we've really, I say we, but I say we as human beings, we've got to take a look at what goes on in college and how the environment contributes to these things, not just happening, but happening over a long period of time and being covered up. And that's something that these guys are certainly interested in as well. So it's not just about a financial settlement. They really want to see some legitimate change.
John Vaughn called it an epidemic. He called the the frequency of these, the long running, length of time that a lot of them occur, especially Michigan, you're talking 37 to 40 some odd years. How many people, the enablers, the institutional protection, it's just like, I mean, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue with him using a word like epidemic because it's happened so often.
Yeah.
And if it's come to the light this many times, that there's some out there where they still haven't said anything. Wherever they occurred, however it happened, whoever was behind them, and you may never hear about it. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter with these types of things. We're getting back into the same old argument. There's never going to be physical evidence or proof or video record. Like, they happen behind closed doors, and that's why these people are able to do what they do for so long. These predators. So. It's a strong word that John used, but when you really look at what he's talking about, like I said, the number of occurrences, the longevity of these cases, the amount of victims, and the enabling and the protection that seems to happen, it's a problem. It's obviously a very real problem.
Yeah, it is a real problem, and I can tell you that I think there's a sense among some of the survivors that they hate that the focus has zeroed in on Bo Schembechler, and we know why that is, right? One of the most recognized, if not the most recognizable figure in Michigan sports history. Obviously, he's got the statue, the sayings all over the building. But what's happened is that because Bo Schembechler is a part of the conversation, it's really taken away from what actually occurred. And it's now become an us, a survivors versus Bo Schembechler sort of argument. And I think it's really robbed a lot of these survivors of the support that they deserve from the University of Michigan community and family. I mean, we have seen hundreds of people, sign their name to a letter, like coming to the defense of one man, but we really haven't seen the Michigan community rally around these guys the same way that they have Bo Schembechler. And I think it's a shame, because if Bo Schembechler wasn't part of the equation, and he certainly is part of the equation, he's not the biggest part, he's not the whole part, but he is a part of it. If he
on
wasn't
his watch, you can't
correct.
change that.
You
Yep.
can't change that. But the fact that he is now a part of this story, I think has really taken away from the support that these guys rightfully deserve, and I think that's a shame.
Did you read John Bacon's entire excerpt? I mean, it was long.
Yeah, I read through. I went through it quickly, but I read through quite a bit of it.
I kind of did the same thing. I know John Bacon not well, but I've spent some time with him. We've talked. I know he knows my former coworkers at the Wolverine pretty well, and so I've been around him and in the same circle as him before, and we've communicated. I like John a lot. I really do. I think he's another, and I think his article that he put out was well written. It was well thought out. He's obviously an extremely bright dude. He puts his words to paper as well as anybody that I've read. I'm not a huge reader, I'll admit that, but I've read some of his stuff, and I like his stuff. I still think he's too close to it. I just still think he's too close to the whole situation to really have an opinion. And he wasn't that opinionated. I mean, that's kind of like his thing a little bit. He doesn't want to step out on a limb too much, but like
Correct.
I still think anybody who's that close to it, like John Bacon, like Jim Brandstatter, you don't just sit this one out for a little bit. I just don't think that if you're that close to somebody. And he mentioned it multiple times. I spent all this time with him. I wrote this book about him. He sent me this box of letters. We did this. We did that. Like, you saying all that right there means you shouldn't have an opinion, because you can't have an unbiased look at something like this when you know somebody like that.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I thought one of the things that he did really well was, for somebody who is close to the situation and spent a considerable amount of time with Bo Schembechler, out of anybody who has had a similar experience or is that close with Bo Schembechler,
I know where you're going already.
I haven't heard anybody approach it with this, with a level head and say, "Hey, look, it's possible this happened," and I have to acknowledge that. And I think for somebody like John Bacon, who, you're right, spent time with Bo Schembechler, was close to him, I think it's comforting, at least from my standpoint, to hear people, approach it with like a level head and say, "Look, I thought he was a good guy. We spent a lot of time together, but honestly, I don't know. There's a lot of smoke there, and clearly some things happened." And I think from that standpoint, it's good. And more people like that I would encourage to come forward, because the mouthpiece for the defense of Bo Schembechler is like, yeah, we feel bad for the victims. But, and then this just long drawn out about how good of a guy Bo Schembechler was.
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, I thought John, he at least put in there like that this was possible. He still didn't like stake a claim. He still didn't like definitively say Bo knew and that this was really bad and it looks bad on him. I mean, he might have got into that it looks bad on him because it was his watch, and he certainly knows about the quotes that Bo used to have. Some of them were in there about if you're the leader and you do this and you do that, you've got to take responsibility for all of that stuff. So it was close. It was close to being a prominent person who knows the situation and knew Bo and is still around and still involved in the media taking a stance, but it wasn't quite there.
Put it this way, if Brandstatter had said something to the effect of what Bacon said in his write-up when he was on the radio, it wouldn't have been news, not to the extent that it was, and it wouldn't have the tone that it had. Yeah. So I just think, even if you're a Bo defender, I hate that we even have to have Bo defenders in this conversation. Like, saying that is weird, but if you're somebody who finds it hard to believe that Bo may have known, listen to guys like Bacon who were probably closer to him than you were, spent more time with him than you did.
Yeah, no doubt
And
about
they,
it.
they have the ability to acknowledge that, hey, there's always things you don't know and anything is possible. And I think what Bacon did at the end was, the right thing to do. No matter where you stand on this issue, it's clear that there was a massive institutional failure, that Bo Schembechler was a part of that, and a lot of other people were a part of that. And the shame in this whole thing is it led to what it led to. And that's when I go back and say, I almost wish Bo Schembechler wasn't a part of the conversation, because I feel like it's really holding things up, and it is creating this rift within the fan base that really we should be rallying behind these guys coming forward and giving them our full support, and doing whatever we can to help them get whatever it is they want.
Yeah, fan base, alumni, former players, regents.
Yeah.
I mean, former coaches. There's a spike. There's this. We talked about it before. The names on the list say something, and some of the names missing from the list say something, and so automatically it's like those two groups either aren't seeing eye to eye publicly, or behind closed doors they're having different conversations, or behind closed doors they're not having conversations at all, which isn't good. It's like it's bad. It's a bad situation right now because of, like you said, it's turned into more like football, Bo, and like how could you and how could you not, and you didn't know him, I did, and that's not really what it should have been about ever. And I said that to both John and Chuck when we talked to them. Like, it's so weird that this has turned into like Team Bo versus Team Victims.
Right.
That's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. Yeah, where the support is and where it's not, and vice versa. And it's driven a spike. It's created a rift, and we're now a month to the day away from Big Ten Media Days, and a couple of months and a half away from the start of the football season. And like you said, it's not going anywhere. And Michigan tried to put a Band-Aid on it. Here's some money. No thanks. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep this mediation going. Let's see what else is said. Let's see who else comes forward. It's not going anywhere, man. But who is going somewhere is me, because I'm running out of daylight. You talked about this creepy room before.
It's getting real dark behind you, man. I didn't want to say anything, but it looks like I don't know. It looks like the darkness is setting in.
Yeah, it's coming in quick. I've got the window, but we're approaching 9:00 here. Man, and the days are already getting shorter, dude. How about that, right? June 21st is the longest day.
I know you're out of state right now, but I'm telling you, for anybody listening that's been in Michigan, how great has the last 2 days been? I mean,
I've heard it's been nice.
There is a fall feel in the air, and it's got all of those feelings are starting to come rushing in. And I know we've got a ways yet.
I was going to say, let's not do that just yet. I mean, my birthday's coming up. That's usually
it was it was like a sampler,
vibe.
a little sampler platter of what's coming. There was a tint of it in the air, and it felt nice. I'd like to enjoy the rest of summer, but I'm ready for fall.
There you have it. Thanks to everybody for listening. A little shorter episode tonight, as I am still currently at my in-laws. We're getting ready to hit the road to head back to Michigan tomorrow, so got some packing up to do tonight and getting ready for that. Like I said, I'm losing daylight. I don't know if there's a whole lot else to talk about at this point either. I mean, there is some, we missed the day earlier this week with the weirdness going on around here with my trip and people that we're seeing and plans, and my son's been sleeping like a maniac because he's not in his own room, and he's, I'm preaching to the choir for anybody out there who has kids. I know Chris certainly can empathize with what I'm doing. So anyway, appreciate you guys listening. We'll try to be back again on Friday. We'll see what happens between now and then. And I mean, at this point, dude, I will say this. We talked about how much we're enjoying these, even when we do have to talk about a rather unfortunate topic. I think every time that you just mentioned it, the sampler platter. Every time we get to talk a little bit more about football, it was a recruiting get today. The big visits are happening. I mean, before long, high school football is going to be practicing. It's just going to get. I feel like it's going to get more and more enjoyable. We will continue to talk about this Robert Anderson thing whenever it's appropriate and whenever we need to. But I'm with you, man. It's coming. It's coming, and I feel pretty good about that. So
72 days, 3 hours, 4 minutes, and 22 seconds.
Is that for Michigan or college football in general?
That's for kickoff, Michigan.
Wow, 72.
Game day.
That's
72 days, 3 hours, 4 minutes, and 10 seconds.
I think it's less than I would have thought. We will leave
Dude, you know how fast 72 days goes by?
Yeah, that's not. I would have thought. I mean, I guess that was like a month ago. I was thinking, like, all right, 100 days, So yeah, man, there it is.
It's coming.
There it is. All right, we'll leave you with that. We'll be back on Friday.